Hey everyone, I'm Rachel,
And I'm Jen, and welcome to Devilish Bookworms, the podcast.
where we read and review books and release episodes every Tuesday.
This week we have The Wind Will Guide Us by Sasha Valerio. Yay! Kaiska and Yakin roam the world together, deeply in love but forever cursed by their forbidden love. They refuse to part from each other. Kaiska sees Yakin die many times over, but he also can't live without him and grants him life every time he dies. All they seek is peace and to love each other until their end of days. But will they ever find it? So, Rachel, what did you think of this book?
So this was a novella. This was a little short one this week, but it was beautiful. In this book, we really get to see Sasha's writing style, and it is very flowery. It's very romantic, and I think that the whole book is really, or the whole novella is really setting the tone. So she gives a lot of descriptors on, where the characters are. I loved that it was so pretty. They weren't just, straightforward sentences. If any of you have heard our podcast before, you know that that is totally my jam. Um, Now this book, as Jen said, it's basically a love story between two people that are immortal, essentially. And each chapter is a different snapshot in their lives. So one is like in when they're in Greece and what their life looks like in Greece, and one is, when they're up in the north, and kind of all over the place. And so each chapter really gives a different look into their lives at that time, which is cool when you think about, they're the same characters who are essentially living forever, and how differently their lives can look at any given moment.
And I think it was really beautiful how she actually like intertwined them and showed their love for each other. I mean, there was moments where it was just a stolen look or just feeling the presence of each other, and that's what I saw as flowery, as Rachel was saying, because you really did feel the dance between them and the love, and how much they would do for each other.
Right. And like one of the quotes that I wrote down is, just because of it was a mixture of like, crass kind of modern language mixed with like the poetic descriptive. So the quote is, "It hurt like hell, a deep-rooted sting that seemed to call back to past wounds and battles almost forgotten." So you see, it kind of has that, like, yes, there was modern bits to it, but it was very kind of like a song, kind of just like swirly and curly language.
Yeah, one of the ones that I actually highlighted was time was such a fickle thing, endlessly long yet fleeting all the same. And it was just like you could feel like the motion in the words. I don't know.
Yeah, what's funny is I keep, as I'm trying to describe like the language, yes, there are words for it, right? But I'm like moving my hands. It's very like it's like
That's what
like I'm
I just
Italian. No,
did
I'm just
too.
kidding. Right? You're
No,
like you're doing that like swishy
like the
thing.
little waves. Yes. Oh my God. That's how you know we both like think very similar. We're doing the same hand motions over here.
It's the New England in us.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
For Christ's sake. That sounded like Minnesota. So one of the things that I did love, because of the fact that this is a story that is really told throughout the ages, and each snapshot is so different because each time period has its own tone. It's we're seeing the couple in that time and place, and they're vastly different. And I love the fact that on each chapter there is a location and a timestamp. So each place begins with, "This is where we are, this is the year," which I was so thankful for.
One of my favorite things when she did actually kind of describe where they were, she actually did use real places. So there was one where I can't, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, but it
Oh,
actually meant,
was it Turgaviste?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that one. Like it was just so cool because of the fact that that's actually a real landmark. And it's just, I don't know, there's something beautiful about when you actually use landmarks, especially to tell a story. And with this story, it's not only a love story, but it's a tragedy. As much as they're together throughout the entire process and they love each other and they never want to be parted, Kaiska witnesses Yakin die so many times. And that is like the most painful thing because you see him fall to his knees and he's like crying out and you can feel the grief through the pages and it's just like I could see him, on a battlefield with fallen soldiers, like the way she did it and then she put the reference in there. It was just beautifully tied together.
Oh, 1,000%. And that's a perfect segue to like, so each chapter, it is its own, it is a different place, it is a different time, but they're all actual times in history and locations, not only locations, but Sasha has actually been to, I believe she said almost every location mentioned in the book or every location mentioned in the book. So this isn't
Wow.
just like things that she just popped up with out of nowhere. Like she's been to these places, she's seen these, you know, different people and different customs, and they were so cool. Like this is actually me geeking out for a second. Like they were so cool. There was one time, one of the chapters where they're talking about, and you know what? Actually, I love about the way Sasha wrote this is the fact that she doesn't give things away. Everyone, that my biggest pet peeve is when people just exposition, just give away all the answers, don't make us work for it. She made us work for everything, and I was so happy about it. I don't know that everyone will be happy about it, but she made us work for everything. Like I was googling things because full transparency, I didn't know what the Picts were, but the Picts were people that fought the Romans. They were from the late 3rd century, descendants of Is it Caledonia? There's two eyes. Pompeii, Caledonia. Anyway, but I got to like go through Turkovish Day. I didn't know what that was. And then I was Googling and I literally fell down a rabbit hole. There were so many instances of me being like, oh God, what is that? And then I look it up and I'm like, oh, and then I'm, like an hour later, I'm freaking reading about Greece still.
I can actually attest. I was Googling as well, especially like when it came to I'm gonna botch this. I'm so gonna botch it. The Bissarica din deal, which literally means church on a hill. I love that. It's so complicated but simple. And it was like the perfect simple description, but it made me work for it. I'm not going to say that I like working for finding out answers, but it definitely interested me. I needed to know that one. I don't know why, but I just absolutely needed to know.
I actually do. I really love working for it. Like my little like because so I didn't realize at first, right? So we're talking about Vlad the Third and Mehmed, and like the attack of Vlad's attack on the camp at night, and like I went down this whole rabbit hole. I love that. It's like Easter eggs. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even realize that we were talking about Vlad the Impaler at first. And then we got to a certain part, and I was like, wait a minute. So then I'm Googling, and I Googled, like, Vlad at Turgoviste and like what happened and all this stuff. And I just like down this little rabbit hole. And I was so excited. And then it was like I said, the Picts versus the Romans. They were in that battle. I don't know. It was just so cool to me. I love it. I love when there's more. You know what I mean? Like I love when there's, a reference made and there's so much more to that reference, or if there's symbolism in there and you have to figure out the symbolism. I love it when there's more.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I was kind of like really jazzed when I saw that she used Coney Island in there
Yep,
for
yep.
I was like, oh, somewhere around my sticks. Like, especially the fact, doesn't she live in Australia?
She does.
So I mean, that's like a really cool reference from the US that she just pulled into it and used perfectly. I mean, and it's like it's not a common reference, but it's something that someone like almost anybody can recognize. Almost everybody has heard of Coney Island if they've heard of New York.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it's just like even if she didn't make you work for some of them, she made you work for others. So it was like a back and forth situation because she even mentioned the huge spiders in Australia. That's a big nope. That is a big nah. Never
No.
gonna go there. No, thank you. You can keep those spiders. I am good with even just daddy long legs. Those are too much for me. But at least I knew exactly what she was talking about when she mentioned them because someone traumatized me with them in like fifth grade. Yeah. So, anyways, sorry.
Yeah, they're very smart references. Like, and I'm not saying smart as in like strategic. They're smart and like they're different. I mean, yeah, yeah, talking about Vlad the Impaler, but like talking about him in a way that like is more than just the myth and the legend, right? Like she's talking about actual things. And I don't know that her references to history and to location were just they were just amazing.
Yeah. Now, I have to ask, did you have a favorite quote?
Um honestly, no. And the reason why is because they were all so flowery for lack of a better word. I loved the writing itself. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
it was like I couldn't pick one because there were too many to choose from.
Okay.
How about you?
I do have one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had two, but this one kind of was my favorite. It's simple, but it was nice. And it kind of works with what you just said. Words were pretty little things thrown around easily and with little thought. So it
Mm-hmm.
it's a very true statement and I love it, but it just talked literally about her own writing right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you can tell so much with it. There are so many books that are like not my vibe, but they're definitely other people's vibes where it's just straightforward language, or you know what I mean? It's just very like not normally sci-fi. Normally sci-fi has very, specific kind of complicated, I guess you could say language. It's very, because it has to be. There's so much world building, there's so much going on that it has to be very descriptive, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there are also a lot of, especially like the more contemporary books where it's like not very artsy, not very like don't come for me people, but you know what I mean? Like not it's just very like the phone rang. She walked over to the door, opened it, and there was someone she knew on the other side. You know what I mean? And Sasha and Valerio does not write like that.
No, she does not. Now, I have to ask, who was your favorite character?
um, I don't know that I had one because it's really just the two. There are other characters, but the story is so central around them both, and they're both so different. So like Kaiska is like, harder, colder, doesn't trust easily, is very kind of like the more reserved to themselves kind of person. And Jockin is softer, like hugs, smiles, open and friendly and kind of like that. And it's very much the grumpy slash sunshine, right? Isn't that what it's called? But it's the two halves of the same coin, you know? And you kind of can't have one without the other.
Kind of like us.
Kind of like us, although we're very fluid in that it changes.
Right. But I mean, I kind of saw that Yakin, well, not necessarily changed, but kind of stepped up into a role. Like at one point, Kaiska is hiding behind a wall and he's just looking at Yakin and Yakin's like ready for battle. And then all of a sudden you see Yakin die, but Kaiska is like full on rage mode and he's taking some shit down. And
Yeah,
like, so that I don't know. I was kind of a fan of both of them, but I related more to Kaiska.
I can see that. I can see
Yeah.
that. More
Burn the,
kind of like
burn the
not
bitch
necessarily.
down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. We do it for the ones we love.
Aw. You know what I thought was really cool was Jockin. I know I keep pronouncing it Jockin. I'm sorry, but Jockin's marks and scars. So like Kaiska is immortal for reasons that we will not divulge because spoilers. But Jockin is the one that's human and that dies all the time. Right? Not all the time. It's not like a it's a hobby. He just does it. But he's the one that dies. And I loved the fact that there's a specific kind of like original wound that kind of stays forever, but all of the subsequent marks and scars go away over time, but they stay for a long time. So like if he were to get shot in the chest, right? His mark would stay there and it would heal, but the actual mark itself would stay there for like decades or centuries or whatever, but eventually it would go away, but it would still stay there. So it was still a mark upon him. There are some that you read it and it's like, oh, the mark was gone, and then it was like it never happened. That's fine for like if that's your story, but I love the fact that his don't go away right away, because like when you live through something, especially if it's something traumatic, like I don't know, dying, it's going to leave a mark on you. You know what I mean? Whether that's purely like mental or emotional or physical. So I love the fact that his stayed because it would stay.
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, even after the scar disappeared, he would still feel the pain at times from that mark.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely beautifully done.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool.
Absolutely.
So I know that I'm kind of bringing up something that we already discussed, but I really did love the amount of historical knowledge, the historical references that were brought into the book. Kind of, I'm kind of a sucker for like history. I love learning about it. Um, I do go on those like deep dives, the rabbit holes all the time, but my knowledge is kind of centered around specific things. It's not necessarily like it is kind of limited. So, a lot of things that I research and deep dive is like mostly centered around like England specific things, like, the plague, like the 1300s. Also, like the time period of like King Henry VIII and Lady Jane Grey and Queen Elizabeth, and kind of like focused, I guess. But I love learning about history. I love not even just that, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I do know a lot, or like I always research a lot about Egypt and the different pharaohs, kind of like all throughout, like Hatshepsut and like Nefertiti, Cleopatra, obviously. So I know a bit about that. But it's kind of like focused, right? I do know some about Vlad because I've done a lot of deep dives on him before, his brother Radu, a little bit about like, the Turks and the Ottoman Empire and stuff. But she brought it all the way back like to the Picts and the Romans, and like the late third century is really like something I've never really looked into, or like that Northern Ireland kind of like at that time, like 600s, you know. And I feel as though like if I had all of the time in the world, all of the resources, I would love to just go places and just learn all of the history that I possibly can. I think that I would be one of those people like Marius in the Vampire Chronicles. He was very much like a lover of history, and he had like books and books and books and libraries just full of like everything. And I feel like I would kind of be like that if I was immortal. Like I want to know I want to study every bit of art. I want to study every culture. I want to study every bit of history that I possibly could, and I feel like I could very much live forever just moving from one topic to another. That being said, Jennifer, if you were in a situation where you were immortal for one reason or another, how do you think you would spend that time?
Reading my TBR.
Yes, stop it.
I'm serious. I'm sorry, but it would take the end of the world for me to finish my TBR at this current time frame. Like, Lord have mercy. I added on like 10 books today alone.
Did you
So
really? What are some of the books?
yes.
What are some of the
Uh,
books? Tell
no,
me.
no comment on the podcast. So yeah, I would definitely read my TBR list, do all the things that I've wanted to do in life, travel the world, see all the places. I would love to go to Italy. I would absolutely love to go to Italy.
And if you were immortal, you could spend a decade in Italy and it would
I
be like a
could.
weekend.
I could read in the Colosseum. I'm
Stop.
immortal. Like, that would be my thing. Like, I'd freaking just hike over to the freaking Coliseum, freaking perch up on one of the areas and just read all day. Ugh.
Yeah. Now that we're talking about it, because it's not necessarily this question comes up a lot when we are actually talking about vampires, but this book is not about vampires. But since the sentiment is the same, really, we can talk about being immortal. Like, I almost feel as though there's so much that has been, and there's so much that's more to come, that I know that this is like one of those instances where you don't know until you're there, or you don't know until it's happening. You can guess all you want, and you can theorize all you want, but you don't really know. But I feel like there's just so much that I could happily just keep going, just on and on and on. Like, there's just so much.
Well, and I think the major downfall of it would be the fact that the things that we think we would want to do would become monotonous after a while. Like,
Sure.
sitting in a Coliseum would be monotonous after like 2 or 3 days of doing it.
Right.
So, I mean, it would just be like, yeah, you have unlimited time to do anything, but then there comes the part of you're gonna get bored.
Yeah, but there really is unlimited things to do. Like, yeah, that's one thing, but each, say if you wanted to read, it would be decades before you could read everything that's already been written. But not only that, while you're reading everything that's already been written, more things are being written.
Right.
So there's a never-ending supply of places to go, or even if you go to Paris in the 1900s, it's so different than from going to Paris in the 1920 or in the what is my brain doing in the
2000s.
2000s.
Oh my god,
my brain was trying to say 2000s. Which is not technically wrong.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
So, like, maybe in 4, 5, 7, 1200 years, you're like, I want to think of soccer. And then you go into like, you research all the soccer that's ever existed or ever will exist,
Okay.
or it's existing now.
But let me throw this at you. You're talking as if we're going back hundreds and thousands of years. Okay. What if you were immortal from this day?
I get what you're saying, but especially when you take into consideration my love of history and my love of the arts. And, it's not like you can just sit there and research every folk singer that's ever happened. Because even if I start today, like, I was so intrigued by looking up, the Picts and the Roman situation from 600. Like, yeah, obviously, like, you go down that rabbit hole, but then there's 601 BC, 602 BC, and that's in one area. And then you open that up to a broader world, a broader area, you know what I mean? And what the spider web of the universe is, you know what I mean? Like, and that's just one area. That's not even talking about the math and the way that math changes and evolves throughout the years. I understand what you're saying, but you're looking at it as from like this point forward, but there's also everything that happened previously.
Right. No, I get that. I absolutely understand that. But at the same time, it's just like, I think maybe it's more of a personal thing. Like, I would end up getting bored. Like,
Yeah.
so I have a day off. All right. I sit there, I read, I do the dishes, I cook, I clean, whatever it may be. If I sit down to play video games, if I play the same video game for more than like 2 hours, I'm bored. So I have to change it and play a different one. So it's just like, I know I'm going to get bored easily. Like, even with reading, like, I'll have to hop off of it for a while if I'm, around for a few centuries. I'm going to have to stop reading and I'm going to have to find something else to occupy my mind, whether that be doing like a 100,000 piece puzzle. I mean, that would take a few years, but I mean, I'm just saying, it's gonna take a lot to keep me going.
No, I get that. I get that. And I don't think I'm explaining myself well. So, like, if I were to go in a deep dive, like, if you put me on Wikipedia, there was one time I went on Wikipedia, and this was months ago, like, or maybe last year, and I looked up every single descendant that Vlad the Impaler had from him all the way down to until it ran out of people. And like, then you jump onto a different person. Okay, well, if then you go back up and then you're like, okay, well, what about his brother Radu? And then it's like, then you go down his people. You know what I mean? And you don't forget that we're immortal. You know what I mean? So if we're immortal and if we can do whatever we want and say what we're and go wherever we want, then it's like, okay, well, I want to go to Romania. Like, let's go to Romania. And then we go and then we do all the fun things and we read all the fun things and we, look up all the history that we can there. And then we're like, well, that was fun. Now what? And then it's like, let's go and see what the Aztecs have to offer. And then you go and you read everything that the Aztecs have to do. And then you're like, well, let's play the games that they used to play, or like, let's do, I don't know. It's not, I know I'm not explaining
Yes, you
myself.
are. You're explaining it just perfectly fine. This is just how we are different individually, because
Yeah.
you see the positives and everything, and I'm just like sitting there like, I'd get so bored. Why?
I am the most Pollyanna goth chick you've ever seen in your life. Like, I wake up every day and I'm like, there's so many possibilities. My room is painted black. I wear only black. I wear makeup that would make a drag queen very happy. Like, my hair is dyed vampire red. Um, but
Meanwhile, yeah, meanwhile, I'm the freaking like one that goes, oh, the world sucks. What are we doing? Cut my wrist and black my eyes, that I was listening to the
that's a
grunge.
great
Oh,
song.
it is a great song. But I'm just saying, like, I'm the doom and gloom in this relationship, and she's all like fucking perky and shit, and yet I wear the colorful, well, okay, maybe not all the time, but I wear a lot more colors than she does.
But you know what the best part about it is like, if we had unlimited resources and unlimited time and I was like, Jen, I want to go see the polar bears in like Antarctica. Jen would be like, okay, let's go see the fucking polar bears in Antarctica.
But we gotta go somewhere warm after because I don't like the cold.
But
See,
she would do it because she loves me.
I would like fucking hell. Like this shit that she's gotten me to do because I love her. Jesus, I know.
You want to know what's funny? So sometimes when I post on threads, especially, sometimes when I post, I'm like, oh my god, that's so amazing, congratulations, there's 15 exclamation marks and a bunch of emojis. And then like somebody will post something about toxic positivity and I'm like, oh, that's me, they're talking about me.
And me, I'd like if I see something, wow, that's cool.
But I'm not even like being disingenuous. Like, I'm
Yeah.
snerious.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
you really are. I'm just like the thumbs up person. Like, wow, 2 thumbs up. You did great. Yay. Like, I'm cheering for you.
Yay.
Don't get me wrong. It's just like
internal excitement.
Yeah, there's very rare moments that I show it on my face.
Listen, I've been to a lot of very dark places. It's taken a lot to get me to see so much good in situations. And Jen, out of everyone, can attest to this. It's taken me a hot minute to get here. But now that I'm here, we're going to see the glitter in life.
Oh, God. And I just want to barf. I don't know how the roles got reversed, but someone told me that I was such a positive person. And I'm like, win. Win. Like, I'm literally, the glass is half full, but it's also half empty. Like, give me a break.
At least there's water in the glass.
And see, there she is with her fucking positivity.
So this book was written by Sasha M. Valerio, and I was very happy to see at the very end of the book that she is going to have a full-length novel about Kaiska and Jakin. So I'm very excited to have that come out because, like I said, I just loved the way she wrote things. I love the way she held back and didn't give you all the answers, and she kind of laid all the groundwork. So I'm very excited to see that book come to life. Sasha does reside, as we previously stated, in Australia, and
come on, she lives down under.
I will not.
I'm sorry. I had to.
This book is available on Kindle Unlimited. I did want to make sure that everyone knew that because I want to start making sure that I let people know when things are available or where things are available. So Sasha has a website. It is sashavalerio.com, SASHAVALERIO.com. And if you go to her website, she has links to all of her socials, so you can find them all there. Sasha has a TikTok and a blog that are at sashavalerio.com. All right, Jen, go ahead and tell everyone what we will be listening to next or reading next week.
Wow, what we're listening to. I'm not listening to it.
Sorry. Neither am I.
So next week, we are reading Mirror Girls by Kelly McWilliams. And I am so excited for this.
Yay!
Yes. So we will see you next week. Like, follow, subscribe, do all the things. And don't forget to share.
Yes. And talk to us. We're funny, I think.
I mean, most days.
Jen's funny.
Funny looking.
I hate you.
All right.
Bye.